Welcome to the MrpTech podcast. This is episode 29. My name is Matt, and this is a weekly podcast where I review multiple platforms and technologies to see which works best for me in order to help you. And this week is going to be a Google-focused episode. And the reason for that is if you've been listening to some of the prior podcasts here, especially the early podcasts of MrpTech, I've mentioned that this year in particular at the school district that I work with, we're going to be rolling out Chromebooks to all of our staff and students. And this week we are starting phase one of our technology grant that we have acquired. And we are starting to train the staff here at our school district to use things like Google Classroom and Google Drive, and to make them aware of some of the features that they have and can use in their classroom from now on. They've had these features available to them, and they are now getting training in which they will use to create lesson plans, create online assignments, and really get students involved with technology. And that's what I'm really excited about in the upcoming months here at the district that I work at, is getting everybody to use technology in order to help students' test scores improve, getting students involved with giving them the things that they need to be successful. So as the week goes on, we're going to have some training on Google Chromebooks, and I'm giving a presentation on Google Drive. And I thought about in this episode giving a sort of behind the scenes look at what my presentation for Google Drive. And, you know, Google Drive is very basic, and I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this probably use Google Drive every day. So I'm not really going to do that today. But I really wanted to do a Google-focused podcast. And recently I just finished listening to an audiobook. It's called How Google Works. It is written by Eric Schmidt, Jonathan Rosenberg, and Alan Eagle. And it was narrated by Holter Graham and Jonathan Rosenberg. It's about a 10-hour book. And when I first started reading this book, I was really thinking that it was going to be a sort of inside look at everything that happens at Google from an employee standpoint. We've all heard about the employee perks, you know, the free food, the pods for taking a nap during the day. And I really kind of wanted to, you know, if you've ever seen the movie The Intern, I really kind of wanted to get a general idea of what it was like inside Google. And listening to this book, it was more from a management position, written from the Google executive chairman, Eric Schmidt, and the SVP of products, who is Jonathan Rosenberg. Basically, they gave their ideas of management from the top down, from what a CEO should be doing to other managers in management projects, and how they manage to scale Google from the very beginning all the way up to the huge company it is now. It was a quite different read than anything else that I've really ever listened to. I listened to a lot of audiobooks. And in this case, it was very non-traditional. It's the corporate culture that Google uses and the freedom it gives its employees to get their work done, but also start side projects, and how they should spend 20% of their time not only doing the work that they need to do, but 20% of their time working on projects that they are interested in. And how many different projects have come from that year after year. New ideas such as the Loon project, where balloons are going up in the sky providing Wi-Fi to a specific area, or the self-driving car, or Android that was acquired by Google at a certain point. You know, these projects have grown into huge money-making ventures for Google. So if you have a thought process and you listen to a lot of audiobooks or you read a lot of books and you want to know more about 21st century management skills, I would say that How Google Works is a great book for anyone looking to not only think outside the box, but take a look at a different perspective of management and how inspiring employees to be creative and have a voice of their own rather than being managed and told what to do all the time I think this really is a great book for anyone looking for a different perspective. I would caution, though, that some of the management practices of Google might not work in a different setting or a small business setting. Google, has the money and the cash behind it to be able to offer some of these perks, but it is a different look at management skills, especially if you have your own business or thinking of starting your own business. It's definitely a thought-provoking book worth checking out. You can download it from Audible. That's where I got it from, or you can pick up a hard copy from Amazon. They're both about $17. I used an Audible credit, so I got it for a little less than that. Definitely a recommendation for anyone interested in how Google works. Really quickly, I want to say a quick thank you to, Steve McLaughlin from podnuts.com. This week he mentioned the MrpTech podcast in one of his shows called Linux for the Rest of Us. I believe it was episode 202. He talks about Ohio Linux Festival and a few other things. And at the very end of the episode, right around the 1 hour mark, he does mention this podcast. And I just wanted to say thanks to him and Cody Cooper, the host of that show, for talking about my YouTube channel and helping me get some new listeners. I really appreciate the feedback. I really appreciate all the help you guys have given me over the last couple weeks. Thanks again for doing that. And if you've never listened to Linux for the Rest of Us, it's a great show. If you're interested in technology and open source software and Linux related topics, it's a show I've listened to for years now. And so thank you guys for doing that. I really appreciate it. So thinking more about this week's Google training and the Google Drive presentation that I'm giving, one of the things that I want to stress for Google Drive is the ability to have your files anywhere that you go. And for the average user, you get 15 gigabytes for free of space where you can store any of your files, whether it's Word documents or photos or sound clips. You can upload any of the files that you want and have it on the go, and you could download the apps for free on your phone or your tablet, whatever it is, iOS or Android or Windows. And you have access to any of your stuff, and it's synchronized. No matter where it is, it's always up to date. Our teachers here at school are normally used to keeping their files on a server where they have a common drive where they can access it from any Windows computer in the building. But once you leave school, you can't access that common drive, and it's difficult to keep your files up to date. But by uploading that whole folder to Google Drive now, these teachers will be able to have access to any of their files from school, lesson plans, projects, basically anywhere. And what is even better about that is once we have the students on board and we have the students using Chromebooks, the students will have access to all of that too. Now, for pricing plans for Google Drive, you can get up to 20 terabytes worth of storage per month, depending on how much of it is you want to use. If you want to use that, you're going to pay for that amount of storage. And I don't know who needs 20 terabytes of storage. But as from a business and education standpoint, I believe Google still offers unlimited storage for Google Drive, basically unlimited storage for Google Drive. In the past, I've been cautious about Google and some of their revenue gathering techniques, such as putting ads in places to gain revenue from advertising. And I was concerned about students' privacy and data gathering from students who are underage. And I think research in the past that Google does keep in mind students' privacy rights when using Google Drive and Chromebooks and such when they are involved with Google apps for education. So I'm really kind of anxious and ready to roll this whole project out, getting involved with the technology committee in our district here. And I'm really curious to see where it's going to be at in 3 or 4 months once the students get these Chromebooks in their hands. Seeing things that students can do and the projects that students can do with very little, and then all of a sudden being given an upgrade in technology. I really hope to see a lot of great things coming from this. And I've taken trips around to other districts around the area, and these students are using Chromebooks, their test scores are going up, the students are motivated to learn, and it really is a 21st century learning environment for all of these students. And just like the How Google Works book, 20th century management decisions for old businesses just aren't working anymore in a lot of cases. And Google has changed their management style in the future, and it will continue to change in the future. Education, I think, is taking that same path, where 20th century education and techniques that teachers used 15 years ago, 10 years ago even, are now changing, and technology is becoming much cheaper to use, and allowing students to utilize these changes in technologies is really the right path. And in the coming weeks and months and years from now, we're going to see Google and Chrome OS and Android. I really see them all sort of converging, Android and Chrome OS particular, into something much different than what we see right now. Sort of a combination between Chrome OS and Android. And in past episodes, I've reviewed things like Remix OS and Cloud Ready, where the benefits of a company like Google open sourcing things such as Android and open sourcing ideas that they have so that anybody can use these technologies in any way that they want to is another huge benefit for students, college students, high school students, what have you. And the fact that these open source projects continue to grow and continue to get better release after release really fills in all sorts of spaces and things that Google may not be focusing on, such as Android for the desktop, or being able to use Chrome OS on other computers other than Chromebooks, and really makes a broad perspective of what we can do for our students with technology. For instance, I mentioned before that when we roll these Chromebooks out, we're doing that in phases, and not all the students are going to be getting Chromebooks right away. But at the same time, if a student has an old laptop around, they could install Cloud Ready, the open source version of Chrome OS, and they could be up and running with all the other students. Or they could at least try it and see if it works for them. So listening to this book, How Google Works, really sort of opened my eyes to change, and how sometimes I've said it over and over this weekend with iOS 10, change for the sake of change, changing things just because it needed to be changed and has no benefit for its users. Well, in a lot of cases, change can be good if it's done right. And whether it's changing management styles from a company who started in the late 90s and has evolved to now, to educational styles, where when I was in school, our computer lab was out in a bus in the back of the school running Commodore 64s, a real mobile computer lab, where now each student is getting its own Chromebook and being allowed to take this home and work on projects at home and haul a Chromebook back and forth to school for whatever they might need. It's pretty awesome when you think of change like that. Going from a mobile computer lab where desktop computers were built into a side of a bus running Commodore 64s that could basically do nothing for students, and nowadays students get a computer they can take home. It's really awesome, and I'm really looking forward to working with those. So as this week goes on, I hope the presentation I do on Google Drive is going to help some of the teachers and staff that I work with realize that this is their chance to connect with students on a different level than they have before. So what are your thoughts on Google in education? Do you know any districts close by that use Chromebooks in their district? Or are they still primarily Windows or Mac-driven machines? Do you think Chromebooks are great in an educational setting? Or do you think that there are other options that are better for these students than a low-cost laptop computer with cloud storage? I'd love to hear some feedback. You can send me an email. It's mrptechreviews@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support my podcast, please take a look at my Patreon page, just patreon.com/mrptech. And next week, I've got a lot of great ideas coming up. Not going to get into them just yet. I'll let you know how my Google Drive presentation goes. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.